In this video, I'll be going over assignment 17, which is exercise 8.10 in the textbook, which is sales commissions. Use a one-dimensional array to solve the following problem. A company pays its salespeople on a commission basis. The salespeople receive $200 per week, plus 9% of their gross sales for that week. For example, a salesperson who grosses $5,000 in sales in a week receives $200 plus 9% of that $5,000, or a total of $650. Write an app using an array of counters that determines how many of the salespeople earned salaries in each of the following ranges. Summarize the results in a tabular format. So we're going to be creating a table that has the salary amounts on one side, and then on the other side of the table it will say how many salespeople earned these 9 amounts of salaries. Alright, so let's open up our Visual Studio, and as always we're going to start with using System. Give it a class, and since this is called Sales Commissions, we can give it a class of Sales Commission, or whatever. You can just call it Program, whatever you want to call it. And then within our class we're going to have the main method, and then within our main method we're going to want to first create an array of integers to track the number of salespeople in each of the 9 salary ranges. So track the number of salespeople in each of the 9 salary ranges, and we're going to do that by creating an array of integers. And we're going to do that by using int because it's an integer, and this is these brackets here. Within these brackets is what's going to be in that array. So to declare an array, you use these brackets, or to create an array, I guess. And we'll be declaring a variable for this array, and we're going to assign the variable a new array of integers with the size of 9, because we know that there are these 9 different salary values, these 9 different salary ranges that we're going to be using. So we're going to say we're going to assign the variable a new array of integers with the size of 9 because of our 9 different salary ranges. All right, now we're going to do this by, we can see in section 8.3, it shows an example here, and it says in the declaration, the square brackets, right here, the square brackets like I was just showing you, following int indicate that the variable c here will refer to any area of, any array of integers. Will refer to an array of integers. So like I said, these brackets here are saying that we're creating an array here. Okay. So then it says, so we're declaring the array variable here. And then we're going to create the array and assign it an array variable. So here in the example, they're saying that this variable of C, the C array, will assign assign a new value of an integer value of an array with, in this example, it's storing 12 elements, but in ours we want 9 elements. So ours will look pretty similar to that. So we're going to say int array, and we're going to name it salary ranges, since this is how we'll be storing our salary ranges. And we're going to assign it the value of a new array of integers. So new array of integers, and it's an array with the size of 9. And then we're going to add a semicolon at the end to say we're finished with that declaration. So this is the array variable called salary ranges, and we're going to assign it the new integer value with the size of 9. We know there's going to be 9 elements, 9 different elements within this array. Okay, and now we're going to give a value to the number of salespeople. So first, in order to say how many salespeople are in each salary range, we need to first assign a number of salespeople. Okay, and we're going to do this by declaring a variable with type int to store the number of salespeople. Type int meaning integer whole number. The number of salespeople is obviously going to be a whole number because you can only have a person as a whole person. So we're going to declare a variable of type int for integer or whole number to store the number of salespeople. And I'm just going to choose 20. But you can choose however many salespeople you want. I'm going to say, because this is a fictional situation, I'm going to say that we have 20 salespeople. So I'm going to say int, and then I'm going to say number of salespeople. And again, I'm just naming the variable like a really obvious thing so I know what the variable is representing. And I'm going to say the number of salespeople, I'm going to assign it the value of 20. Okay, and then that's it. So I'm putting the semicolon there because that's the end of our declaration. All right, and now the next thing we need to do is generate random numbers, because it will be used to give a random gross sales amount, since there's no actual gross sales amount given in the instructions. We're just going to use a random one. So we're going to generate random numbers. And this will be used a random gross sales amount, since we obviously don't know how much sales there actually were, because it's a fictional case and we weren't given that amount in the instructions. And then, so in order to do this, we are going to create an instance of the predefined class random and declare a variable to assign a new instance of the random class. So create an instance of the predefined class random. So predefined meaning that it has, it's not something that we're creating, we're just giving the name of random. This is actually a predefined class that we're using. And we're going to declare a variable and assign a new instance. Okay, so what that will look like is we're going to use the predefined class random, and that just looks like typing the word random. And then we're going to give it a variable name of, and I'll just say rand for random. And then we're going to assign it the value of a new instance, so typing the keyword new for a new instance, new random. And we're going to give it opening and closing parentheses with nothing in the parentheses because we're not taking in any parameters or arguments within this class. All right. So we're done with that. So we're going to end that with a semicolon because we've created this variable here that we've called rand by using the predefined random class. And what that class is doing is it's getting that random number. Okay, and now we're going to create a new array with type of integer with a length that is going to be equal to this number of salespeople. Okay, so let's create a new integer array with a length equal to the value of and again that's this variable here, number of salespeople. So we're creating an array that is going to be equal to the length of this. That way we're going to say there's 20 salespeople. So we want to make sure that our array is going to be 20 instances long. So we're going to do this by creating an array of integers and declaring a variable to store it. Okay, declare a variable to store the values. And we're going to assign the variable a new array of integers with the size of number of people. So assign the variable, the array variable, because it will be an array. So we're going to assign the array variable a new array of integers. So remember, this is still going to say we're still going to use the keyword int to define that it's they are still going to be whole numbers or integers. Okay, with the size of the value of number of salespeople. Okay, we're going to do this by saying int array. So this is an array of integers that we're going to call gross sales. And we're going to assign it the value of a new array of integers. So int array. And it's going to have the size of the number of salespeople variable up here, which is going to hold the size of 20. Well, this is what it's starting with anyway. Okay. So this is what we're doing, creating a new integer array with a length equal to the value of number of salespeople. And this is how we're doing that. That's what I'm writing in my comments. This is what we're doing. This is how we're going to do it. And the same with this. This is what we're doing. We're generating a random number. And this is why we're doing it, is because we need it to, we're using it to give a random gross sales amount since none were given in the instructions. So we're just creating a false, a random number since we don't have actual numbers to put in there. Okay, now, okay. So now we're going to generate random gross sales for each person. We're going to do this by creating a for statement. And within that for statement, we're going to, well, not within, but that for statement will declare a variable with type int, obviously, because it will be an integer, and assign the initial value of 0, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So we'll declare a variable with type int and assign the initial value of 0, which is not the value of the number 0, but that's the value of the index of 0. Value of, okay, so value of the index of 0. Not index of 0, but index 0. So this is called 0 based indexing, which says that the indexes start at 0 instead of 1. So this can be really confusing because when we think of zeros, when we think of numbers like 0, we think of 0 as the number, but we're not using 0 as the number 0. We're using it as the first instance of the index. So I think in section 8.2, yeah, right here it says, right here where it kind of explains that, it also says this is called the 0th element. So the first element in the index is 0. That's the first element. We call it the 0th element. So it says the first element in every array has index 0 and is sometimes called a zeroth element. Thus the names of C's elements, which is what we saw before, they're talking about the variable C, are, see, this is the variable C, so zero element, the zeroth element is this. So normally when we see a list of numbers, we say this is number 1, this is number 2. We're not saying this is number 1, 2. We're saying we're starting at the very first element of this index, and we're calling it by saying the very first element of an index is 0. So when we say 0, we're calling the first element of the index. We're not saying the value of the number 0. We're calling the first element of the index. So the initial element of the index. Assign the initial element of index, and we do that by 0, or just using a 0. So I think I'll do this, make it kind of clear. So assign the initial element of the index, and we do that by using the 0 for zero-based indexing. Indexes start at 0 instead of 1. Okay. So we're going to say, we're going to create a for statement, and that for statement is going to say, it's going to say for the instance that the variable is less than the number of salespeople, and we want it to increment by 1 for each iteration. So we're going to say in the for statement, we're going to declare a variable, and we're going to assign it the value of that, and we're going to also say that the variable must be less than the number of sales people, and we're going to increment by 1 for each iteration. All right, so we're going to say for, and we're going to use the parentheses to say for this statement, for if this statement is true, do this, right? So we're saying for, and we're going to declare a variable with a type of int. So int, and then we're going to declare a variable. We'll call it I. We're going to assign it the value of 0, and we're going to use a semicolon because we're saying this needs to be true, and then this other thing needs to be true. So this other thing being, we're going to assign the initial element of index 0. That's what we did here. For zero-based indexing, we're saying for each iteration, we're going to start with the initial element here. And then we're going to say the variable must be less than the number of salespeople. So we're going to say this variable I must be less than the number of salespeople and then we also want to increment by 1 for each iteration. We're going to say I because that's the variable that we are using, and then we're going to say plus plus to increment by 1 for each iteration. And we're not going to put a semicolon here because we're not done with the for statement. We're saying for, when this is true, we're going to do this. So we need another opening and closing curly brace. And we're going to say end for statement. So we know this is the end of the for statement. And this is the end, oops, because I forgot to put a comment here. This is the end of main method. Okay, so we want, for every time this is true, we want to assign a random gross sales amount between 100 and 10,000. Because we're using 10,000 because we know we're not going to have a greater anything. We're not going to have a salary that's greater than 1,000. Well, not that we won't have a salary that's greater than 1,000, but we won't have a salary like input that's, we're going to say anything 1,000 and over will be this. So we don't need to do anything greater than 10,000. So let's say we're going to assign a random gross sales amount between 100 and 10,000. We're assigning a random one because we don't have any actual gross sales amount information to put in there. So we're just going to assign random amounts. But we are going to have it between $100 and $10,000. And again, we'll remember that 0 doesn't represent a value of 0, but it is the initial element of the array. And what we're going to do is call the gross salary array, or sorry, the gross sales array. And we'll use the index operator, which is using the I inside the array. And we're doing this to serve as a loop counter or index. So basically this is saying, this is kind of holding the place for each iteration that it does. It's going to add a value to the counter. And then we're going to use the next method, which is because it's a method, it's a predefined method, we're going to use next method of the random class. Oops. So we're going to use rand.next. So that's what I mean by using the next method of the random class looks like this. Rand, because a rand is the variable up here. So we're using this. This is our random class that we've declared. We're using random class for our variable rand. So we're using rand.next to get that random number. And then we will, so within this rand.next, we will be taking the parameters in its parameters, because we're like it's unique to this that we're assigning right now. We're not calling it from somewhere else. So that's why it's parameter and not an argument. So take the parameters of 100 and 10,000 to represent the range of possible gross amounts. So we're going to say we're going to get a random number within 110,000. So we're going to do this by calling the gross sales array variable, and we're going to because this is an array, we use the brackets, and within their array we're going to use I to serve as the loop counter or the index. So this is holding the place value of the index, so this is going to keep looping through until it reaches until this is no longer true, until any of these are no longer true. Well, until it is either, so really until, as long as it's less than the number of salespeople, it'll keep going up by one iteration, and once it hits that number of salespeople, it won't do that anymore. So right now, again, we're just saying the gross sales, and then we're giving this array an index operator. So this is saying the index for the gross sales index, for the gross sales array index, we're going to assign it the value I guess I didn't write that up there, but we're going to assign it the value of rand.next for the next method, and within the parentheses of the next method we're going to give it the parameters of 100 and 10,000, and that's going to be separated by a comma. We're not going to use the word and or anything. We're saying 100 and 10,000 because we can have other things. We can say 100, we can use other parameters, and we'll separate each parameter by a comma, but since we only have two, we only need the one comma. Okay, so instead of use the next, we're going to assign the next method of the random class and take the parameters. I'm going to assign the value of the next method of random class. Okay, so this is taking the gross sales array and it's giving it an index of these random numbers between 100 and 10,000. All right, now we're going to calculate the salary for each salesperson and update the corresponding salary range in the array. Oops. Calculate the salary for each salesperson and update the corresponding salary range in the array. And we're going to do this by, we're going to create a for each loop. And that for each loop is going to declare a variable with type of int, because it will be whole numbers or integers. And we're going to use the keyword in to iterate over the gross sales array. So we're going to say for each, and then we're going to declare a variable, we'll call it sales, for each sales in the gross sales array is how we're going to do that. So we're going to say for each, and then we're going to use the parentheses. Inside the parentheses, we're going to say for each, and then we're going to declare a variable using the type of integer. So type int, and then we'll call it sales. So we're going to say for each, and we're going to say this variable sales in gross sales. Oops. Okay, so we're creating this for each loop. So we're going to say we're going to keep doing this here as long as the sales for each sale in gross sales. Okay, for each sale in the gross sales array, we're going to do this. And what we're going to do is for each sales in the gross sales, so actually for each sale, probably. So for each sale and gross sales, we are going to calculate the salary for the salesperson. And we are going to do this by, so what we're saying in this for each loop is we're going to say for each sale and gross sales, we're going to calculate the salary for that salesperson. And we are going to do this by creating a variable with the type double, because we'll be using the floating point numbers with decimal places. Okay, so we're going to create a variable with type double. And then we're going to assign the variable the value of calculating the salary. And we are going to calculate the salary by so we're going to assign the value of the base salary, because there's a base salary of $200 as a fixed amount. So assign the value of the base salary, which is 200. Oops. As a fixed amount, meaning this is the amount of the base salary. It's not going to change. It's fixed. And then we're going to add the value, of the 9% of the sales. So if we remember in the instructions, it says, for example, the salesperson receives $200 per week plus 9% of their gross sales for that week. So we're going to add the value of the 9% of the sales. So we're going to do this by multiplying multiply 0.09 for 9% by the value of sales. So we're going to multiply 9.09 to represent the 9%, 9% of sales. So we're going to multiply that. So it's going to say, create a variable with type double. So type double. And the variable for this is what we're doing is we're calculating the salary for the salesperson. So we'll call it salary. And we're going to give it the value, or we're going to assign it the value of 200 by giving it the base salary of 200. And then we're going to add the value of the 9% of the sales multiplied by the number of sales. So in parentheses, we're going to add the value of 0.09 or 0.09 for 9%, and we're going to multiply that by the sales. Oops. Why did I do that? So we've created a variable that we're calling salary, and we're going to assign it the value of the base salary amount of 200 plus 9% of the sales, or 9% multiplied by the sale. All right, now we have to determine the index of the salary range in the array. And we'll do that by creating a variable with type int, because it will be a whole number. And we're going to assign the variable the value of, and we're going to give you the value of calculating the salary range. And we are going to do this by, oops, to space. Okay, we're going to calculate the salary range by using, okay, we'll use in parentheses we're going to use int wrapped in parentheses to convert the result of the division that we're going to be doing into an integer. So we're going to be doing a division, and we want to convert that division into an integer. So we're going to use this int with parentheses to convert the division into an integer. And then we are going to divide the value of salary by 100 to convert the dollar amount to the number of hundreds. So we're going to say instead of 200, we're going to say 2, because that'll be the value. But instead of saying 2, we're going to actually subtract 2, because we want to start we don't want to start at the second element of the array. We want to start at the first at 0, at the 0th element. So we're going to also subtract 2. So first we're going to divide the value of salary by 100. And And this is to convert the dollar amount to the number of hundreds. So instead of 200, it will be 2. And then we're going to subtract 2 from the result. And that we're doing that to subtract the base $200 salary. Oops. And we're doing this, we're subtracting the 2, so that way we're going to align the salary range index with the appropriate position in the array. Because salary starts with a value of 200 plus 9% of the sales. And we don't want to start the array index at 2. We want the first index to start at the 0th element, which corresponds with the first salary range. So we're going to subtract 2 from the result to subtract the base $200 salary, so that to align the salary range index with the appropriate position in the array. So we don't want to start, okay, let's say because salary, the variable salary, starts with the value of 200 times 9%. 9% of the sales. We don't want to start the array index at 2 at the second element, I guess, or 2. We want the first index to start at the first element, or the 0th element. At the 0th. Which corresponds with the first salary range. So this first element will be the first salary range. So the first element, first salary range. The first element is the 0th index, not element, sorry, 0th index. We want the first index to start with the, we want to start at the 0th index, or the first element, the first salary range. We don't want to start with the second element or the third salary range. We want to start with the first salary range. Okay, so I know that's like a lot of comments. You certainly don't need to write those comments on there. I'm just trying to explain it in a way that makes sense and write it out so that it helps some people to have it written out. But you certainly don't need to write all that. All you need to write is int, and then we're going to give it a name of, let's call this range index, because this will be the range of, this will be the salary range. This will be the index of the salary range, if that makes sense. Okay, so range index, and we're going to assign it the value of, and this is where we're going to use the parentheses with int. Because this is going to convert the next part here into an integer, which will be, we're going to divide the value of salary. So we're going to say salary divided by 100, right? Because that's to convert the dollar amount to the number of hundreds. And then we're going to subtract 2 from the result. So subtract 2 from the result. So that goes outside the parentheses. And we're going to get a semicolon because that's all that we're doing with, we're just declaring the variable of range index here. Geez, and then all the, yikes. Okay, determine. So we're going to determine the index of the salary range in the array. So we're going to create a variable of type int, assign the variable the value of calculating the salary range, and we're going to calculate the salary range by doing this. And then just to clarify, we're doing this to align the salary range index with the appropriate position in the array. Because salary starts at the value of 200 times 9% of the sales. We don't want this to start the array index at the second element. Actually, this will be the second index, which is actually the third element. All right. We want to start at the 0th index, or the first element. So the first element will be the first salary range, which when we do all this, the first salary range will be 200 to 299. Okay. So next we're going to create an if statement to check if the range index is within the scope of the salary ranges array. So if statement to check if the range index is within the scope of, oh my goodness, the scope of the salary ranges array. So it has to be within the scope of these nine different elements that we'll have. So we're going to check that it's going to be within the scope of the salary ranges array. And we're going to do that by checking if the value of range index, geez. So we're going to check if the value of range index is greater than or equal to 0. And we're checking, what we're going to do is check that it's not a negative value. Okay, so we're going to check that the value of range index is greater than or equal to 0. And what we're doing is checking that it is not a negative value. So we're going to check that it's not negative. We're also going to say we're going to check that it is less than the length of the salary ranges. Array. Okay, or we're going to check that the length, we're going to check that it's less than the number of salaries. So we're going to do this by saying if range index is greater than or equal to 0 and the range index is less than the number of salespeople, the salary ranges, which is the number of salaries. And then we're going to say if it is greater than 0 but less than the you know what? We're going to check that it is less than salary ranges, than the length of salary ranges. So we need salary ranges dot length. So we're checking if it's less than the length of the salary ranges, less than the number of salaries. Not checking if it's less than the salary ranges themselves, but it's less than the number of salaries that we have. Okay. So if this is true, then we are going to increment the value of the salary ranges array. So we're not going to increment the value of the salary ranges array, but we're going to increment the value of the salary ranges array index, the range index, by 1. So let's say increment the value of the salary ranges array index, range index, by 1. So we're going to do this by saying salary ranges, and then within the brackets, so within the array, so the salary ranges array, we're going to take the range index and increment it by 1. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. We're going to take the salary ranges array, and we're going to take the range index of that array and increment it by 1. And then we're going to say so if this is true, that it's less than the length of the salary ranges, and it's not negative, then we're going to increment the salary range index by 1. And we're going to keep doing that until we reach the length of the salary ranges. And then if we've reached the length of the salary ranges, we'll say else do this. And what we're going to do is we're going to give everything else that's left behind, which will be this $1,000 and over. So we're going to say, else we're going to count the salaries of $1,000 and over in the last range. Salaries of and we're going to do this by we're going to increase the value of the last element of the salary ranges by 1. Of the last element and we are going to do this. We're going to increase the value of the last element in the salary ranges array by 1. We're going to do this by, we're going to call the salary ranges array variable, first of all. And then we're going to use the index of the length of salary ranges. So what we did up here, we're going to use the index of. Use the index of salary ranges. Use the index of salary ranges. Oh, sorry, we're going to use the index of the length of salary ranges. So we're going to be using dot length again because we're trying to get the length of, or how many there are. And then we're going to subtract. We're going to subtract 1 to get the index of the last element. That's how we get the index of the last element, is by subtract 1. To get the index of the last element. Okay. And then we're going to increment that index by 1. And that's, again, that's for each iteration that this is true. So that it's not within that it's not less than 10, what is it? So if the range index is less than the salary ranges dot length, so the length of salary ranges, then we're going to do this. If it's not within that, then we're going to get the last, we're going to say that we're going to count the salaries that are $1,000 and over by getting the last element and incrementing that index by 1. So, okay, so what it will look like, we're going to call salary ranges array variable. So we're going to say salary ranges, and we're going to use the index of the length of salary ranges. So we're going to say salary ranges array, and we're going to use the index of the length of salary ranges. So we'll do salary ranges, dot length. So remember, we're going to use the index of, which means it goes within these brackets because this is the index. So remember, this is the placeholder for the index. So we're saying we want to input here the length of the salary ranges. Okay, and then still within the index here, we're going to subtract 1 to get the last element of the salary ranges. And then we're going to increment by 1 for each iteration. Okay. And now this is, this is still the for each sales and the gross sales. We're going to do this. So this is the end for each, and this is the end else. Okay, so that's it. For each sales in the gross sales, we're going to calculate the salary for the salesperson, determine the index of the salary range in the array, and we're going to say if we're going to check if the range index is within the scope of the salary ranges array, and else, if it's not, then we're going to then we're going to count the salaries of $1,000 and over in the last range. Okay. And that's what we're going to do for each sales in the gross sales, right? And now we're done with the for each, and we're going to say, we're going to display the results in a tabular format, or like in a table format. And so we are going to display table titles. So we want to create some titles to display to the console. So we're going to do a console.writeLine, and we're going to display the salary range and we'll give it a tab to make it look like a table, and we're going to give it the we're going to say salespeople. So let's see so far. We'll give it that semicolon there. Let's see so far if everything's looking right, and that we just have these. All right, so we actually don't want this to repeat. We just want one title here, so we do not want this in the for statement. This is I might have something not right here. I think something's not right, but we'll just check it anyway. I think there's only should be 2 here. 2 closing braces. Okay, so it is displaying the table titles here, salary range and salespeople. Let's also just go ahead and give it the console.readLine, so that way we don't see all that extra stuff there. So salary range over here, salespeople will go over here. So now it's interesting because I really think something's wrong here, but it is explained correctly. So, okay. Display table titles, we did that. Now we want to, let's see. We need to display the salary range. But first, we need to get a range of for each range, we're going to need the minimum and maximum amount. So we're going to have to calculate for the minimum, and then for the maximum amount, we're going to have to add 99 to the minimum amount. So we're going to have to we'll have to create some variables to calculate and store the dollar amounts of the minimum amount and maximum amount of the salary ranges. Create variables to calculate and store the dollar amounts of the min amount and max amount of the salary ranges. Okay. And we're going to say these values will be used to display, oh my goodness, the 9 salary ranges, with each range having a min and max amount. So we're going to create variables to calculate and store the dollar amounts of the minimum and maximum amount of the salary ranges, and they'll be used to display the 9 ranges with each having a minimum and maximum amount, just like we saw here, each having a minimum and maximum amount. So first we're going to say, let's see. Okay, so we're going to declare a variable. So we're going to create variables. So we'll declare a variable with type int. They'll both be type int because it will be whole numbers. To assign the salary range minimum. For the current iteration. Which is why this should still be in the for statement. So something is not correct, I think. We'll go back to that in a minute. Okay. Declare a variable with type int to assign the salary range minimum amount for the current iteration, or the starting salary value for the current iteration. And then we'll calculate the minimum amount, and you know what, first, before we do this, we're going to have to create a for. That's what I'm doing. That's right. Okay, that's why I'm missing the for loop. So we're going to have to create a for loop. And within that for loop, we're going to have it declare a variable. Let me give this some room. We're going to have it declare a variable with type int, because it will be a whole number, and we're going to assign it the value of let's see, we're going to give it we're going to assign it the value of index 0, or 0th index, and we're going to say if the range index is less than, we're not going to say if, we're going to say the for, if this is true, the range index is less than the salary range's length minus 1. So if it's less than the last element, okay, so it's less than the length of salary ranges, the length of the last element in salary ranges, and we're going to increment the range index by 1. Alright, so we're saying for, as long as this is true, that declare a variable of int, and we'll call this range index. And we're going to assign it the value of the 0th index. And then we're going to say, as long as range index is less than the length of the last element in salary ranges. So we'll say salary, salary ranges dot length minus 1, right? Then we want to, we're going to use a semicolon. So we're declaring a variable range index with the type of int, and we're assigning it the value of the 0th index. We're also saying if that range index is less than the last element in the salary ranges, and we're also saying we're going to increment the range index by 1. And then we're going to say, and I'm going to say for this instance here, we're going to do this. And this is where we're going to create variables to calculate and store the dollar amounts of minimum amount and maximum amount of the salary ranges. These values will be used to display the 9 salary ranges, with each range having a minimum max amount. So this is how we're getting the 9 salary ranges. So we're saying as long as the range index is less than the last element of the salary ranges. And so we're going to declare a variable with type int to assign the salary range minimum amount for the current iteration. So we're going to do that by, we're going to assign so we're going to declare a variable, we're going to declare a variable to assign the salary range minimum amount for the current iteration. And then we're going to calculate the amount for the current iteration by, we're going to add 2 to the value of the range index. So that way we can, so we're going to add 2 and then we're going to multiply by 100 so that we can get that, we can add that $200 base salary back onto the amount. So this is taking the index and we're going to turn it back into the dollar amount. Okay, so add 2 to the value of range index, and then we're going to multiply that by 100 to get the values of the dollar amounts in, well, in the hundreds. And we'll say this will add the $200 base salary Okay, so we're going to declare a variable with type int, so int, and we'll call this min amount because this is how we're getting the minimum amount for that salary range. So we're doing the range index, and we're going to take that range index and we're going to add 2, and then we're going to multiply by 100. So that gives us the dollar amounts of the of each range. So we're going to have the range index, and then the dollar amount for each of the dollar amount of those ranges. And then we're going to create variables to calculate and store the dollar amounts of minimum amount and maximum amount. So this is for wait, this does say okay. Declare a variable type int to assign the salary range minimum amount. So we did the minimum amount. Now we need to declare a variable with type int to assign the salary range maximum amount for the current iteration. And we are going to calculate the max amount. And we're going to do this, we are going to do this by simply adding the 99 to the value of minimum amount. Yeah, because for each salary range, it's starting at this, the minimum value, and then it's adding 99. So it's going up by 99 for each salary range. So we're just going to add 99 to the minimum. So we're going to do this by declaring an int type of max amount, we'll call it, and assigning it the value of minimum plus 99. Okay, so that's pretty simple there. And now we have to display the values of the salary ranges with the range of the minimum and maximum, with the range of the minimum to the maximum amount. So display this is what we're going to do. So we'll display the values of salary ranges with the range of minimum amount to maximum amount for each range. Display the values of salary ranges with the range of minimum to maximum amount for each range. So we're going to use string interpolation to display the values for minimum amount to maximum amount. To max amount. And then we're going to also display the values. We're going to display the number of sales people in each salary range. By displaying the value of the salary ranges So we're going to display the values of the salary ranges with the range of minimum amount to maximum amount for each range, and we're going to use string interpolation to display the values of minimum amount to maximum amount, and we're also going to display the number of salespeople in each salary range by displaying the value. So let's do this on another line, I guess. By displaying the value of salary ranges of the salary ranges corresponding range index. Okay, so we are going to do a console.writeLine with string interpolation. So we're going to use the $, and then our double quotes. And within the double quotes, we're going to say salary, and then we're going to use the $sign to display the $, and we're going to get the min amount, and outside of the curly braces here we're going to have a dash, so let's say the min amount through, so like this has the dash in between, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to do another $sign, and we're going to say max amount. So this is saying salary is this minimum amount through this max amount, and then we're going to give it a tab in between. And then now we're going to say salespeople. So for the amount of, this is the amount of salespeople. So we're going to say this is the amount of salespeople. So in order to get that amount, we're going to say salary ranges variable with the range index. So we're going to display the range index of the salary ranges. And that's how we'll know, and we'll give it a space in between. That's how we know how many salespeople there are in this salary amount. So we're going to say this salary has this many salespeople. And then we're also going to say, we're going to also have to say, we're going to display the salary and number of salespeople for $1,000 and over. For $1,000 and over. So we will say console dot right line, and inside the right line we are going to have salary, we want the double quotations, salary, just like we did here, and we're going to say, we'll give it a space, and we're going to say $1,000 and over, because we know that this is because we know we don't have to get to the salary range. We know that this salary range will be $1,000 and over. And then we're going to say, we're going to give it a tab. Okay, so salary $1,000 and over, we're going to give it a tab because we gave this a tab up here between the salary range and the salespeople. So here we're done with the salary range part. And then here we're going to do the number of salespeople, and we're going to do that by using the curly braces and giving it the index of the 0th index, or the first element in the index, and we're going to say after this is the salespeople. So this is what we're displaying, but how we're going to get this, the 0th index of what is we're going to say that we're going to take the salary ranges, the index of salary ranges. So we're going to take the index of salary ranges dot length minus 1 to get the last element of the salary ranges array. So we'll say salary ranges dot length and then minus 1 to get the last element of that array. Okay, so what we're doing here to display the salary and number of salespeople for $1,000 and over, what we're doing is we're using the curly braces with the number 0 inside as a placeholder to display the value of salespeople. Salespeople with salaries over $1,000. And we are going to obtain the value of salespeople by accessing the last element of the salary ranges array. Okay, so we're going to obtain the value of salespeople by accessing the last element, the last element of the salary ranges array. And then we're going to do this by we're going to get the length of salary ranges. Okay. Use salary dot length. To get the length of the salary ranges array. And subtract 1 to get the last element. Oh my goodness. Of the array. Okay. So this is what we did here. To display the number of salespeople for $1,000 and over, we use these curly braces with the 0 in the middle as a placeholder to display the value of people, the value of salespeople. Let's give it a space there in between. And we don't need a space there, I think. Okay, and then we obtain the value of salespeople by accessing the last element of the salary ranges array, and we get that last element by doing this. Okay, so now let's see. I think there might be something wrong in the code though. I think I might have missed something, but let's go ahead and see how it looks now, if it's working right. Okay, so we have this for each one, so that's not right. So let's see. Why do we have it for each one? Let's see. Let me go over this from the beginning. So we have our class with opening and closing braces, and our main with opening and closing braces. This is end, and this should be the end of this for loop here. End of for statement, end of for each, and else. Right, so for you know what? This is what we did not do. So for this, do this, which is just this part here. And then for each, when this is true, do this. For each should end here, okay. And then this should, let's see. Okay, for each, and then so this should go here, I believe. No, maybe not. So this is end for, wait, yes. End for statement, display the titles. But this, we're not gonna, no. I think, let's see, for min amount, max amount. Here we go. This is the end of this for. Okay, and then we're going to display the salary ranges. Yeah, so we're ending the for loop here. Then we're displaying this. All right, let's see now. Oops, this isn't right now. Let's see. No, we want to. Nope, we want to end the for loop after displaying this amount. So, okay. So this for loop includes the min and max amount. So we need that console.WriteLine statement to be within the for loop. And then this is going to be outside of that loop. All right, so it should be good now. All right, and then we have our salary range, and the number of salespeople. Okay, so everything looks right now and it's working right. So we're just going to make sure we save all, and then that's it. So I hope this helped you guys. Hopefully it wasn't too confusing. You know, it's a lot of information to be using within one app.